They call me Magic Mike. Not that Magic Mike.
When I was little, I told my mom I want to grow up and be a magician. She said, well, you can't do both.
Please welcome Michael Dardant.
All right, Michael, let's see if your magic portal has earned you a magic trophy or not. Boys, are you ready?
Yeah,
You ready?
I think we are, Michael. The whole routine is just great. It's a great idea. And as you know, there's some stuff in there that we know. There's some stuff in there that's classic. And we were kind of following you. I mean, we loved it. Don't get me wrong. We were following all the moves you were doing. We knew where you were going. We were sitting here. But then you got to Brooke naming the two of hearts. And when Brooke named the two of hearts, and we kept talking about Brooke naming the two of hearts, we hit a little bit of a speed bump there. And we had to think really hard about that. And you were doing a lot of spells in Latin. And Teller, as you know, was a Latin teacher. And Teller and I came up with our own spell that I think will explain everything to you about how that two of hearts, how we finally figured that out. And this is, well, Teller wrote it down for me. I want to make sure I get this right. Fulus Trophius.
Congratulations, well done.
Welcome to another amazing episode of the Dre and Smiley Inner Circle podcast.
Smiley back like he never left. We have not that Magic Mike, but the magician Magic Mike. So here's the thing. Episode 167, about a year ago, we had him on, and one thing that's amazing for me about magicians is just the creativity involved. Now, when you're able to take your craft and present it in front of those that are known as like the godfathers, if you will, of the craft, and fool them, I feel like that's when you know that you've got something. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about that in detail in terms of what I'm referring to. But I'll just share this quick teaser, and Mike, I want you to tell me what this means to you when you heard the phrase "Fulius Trophius." Well, in a word, what does that mean to you? And we'll come back to it.
You just gave me that flashback to an instant sense of nervousness and confusion because it was such a surprising moment for me and not what I expected, because I expected it to have a little bit more dialogue before learning anything. And so that was sort of like, does this really happen? Is this real? Is that what he meant? What is happening?
That's a great teaser. Okay, we're come back to that. For those who are watching and listening, wondering what is he talking about, we're going to detail that in a second. So back when you were on before, you talked about your journey to becoming a magician. Again, for those watching, listening, it's episode 167, and your journey was a fascinating one. I encourage everyone who's listening to go back and listen to that episode. Something that really excites me about magic is there's three components, if I understand them correctly. Generally speaking, I'm not a magician, so I could be all wrong about this. Let me know if I am.
Okay.
And I learned this from watching The Prestige
Okay.
and one other show about magicians. There's essentially three parts. There's the pledge, the turn, and the prestige. Is that accurate? And if so, can you break those down for our listeners?
So I would say, I saw the movie. I would say the concepts are definitely accurate. However, that terminology I was not familiar with. I probably need to ask around because perhaps it's just kind of old school terminology, and that film was dated. It was meant to be dated. Or the environment, the setting, and but the concepts are the same. Yeah. So I didn't know if they made up those particular terms. But yeah, and for instance, I didn't even know what prestige meant when it called it that. So I'm assuming that it's just because I'm a newer age magician and those terms existed from before. But essentially, the three components of what you're talking about, and which is three different perspectives of magic. The perspective of what you describe and your story to the audience, then the perspective of what they are actually seeing, which is sometimes very different and unexpected from what they thought the story was about. And then, of course, the perspective that should only be the perspective of the magician, and that is what is actually taking place, what the method, what the secret is, what the truth is behind what you're really doing.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
And actually, that movie, there was reasons that I preferred, say, The Illusionist to The Prestige. While I love the action and the adventure of The Prestige, if you watch The Illusionist, your perspective is the same the whole time. So we're watching from an audience perspective, whereas The Prestige, I broke it down one time I was going to write an article about it, that there's like 5 perspectives of magic that you're getting throughout the movie and having to adapt to which point of view you're seeing from. In The Illusionist, when they talk about the guys by a tree and the tree disappears, we don't know what really happened. We don't know what happened with that tree, but in the eyes of the spectator and the people listening to the story, the tree disappears. And The Prestige is very different because you're seeing a lot of what they think is behind the scenes, and then you're seeing fictional behind the scenes stuff that would never happen. Okay, I guarantee you nobody has water torture tanks with hundreds of clones of themselves. If they did, it would be David Copperfield, and I haven't toured his museum yet, but I think somebody would have told me by now, be careful because he's got a bunch of water tanks with his clones.
Right, right.
That's not the part. I don't want to see that part. That's
Yeah,
scary.
yeah.
So that doesn't exist in magic. It's an interesting concept, and I love that. I love when people have their own fictional ideas. You learn a lot from the layman when they start telling you how they think stuff works. It can be very, very, it can be a brainstorming session. It can be a development in what your mind is capable of, really, and what you can potentially do. They might give you ideas you hadn't thought of, like maybe I should clone myself.
So The Illusionist was more authentic, if you will?
Authentic in the sense that you're seeing from a perspective. So, for example, when you're seeing the orange tree blossom on stage, that's how it should feel to you as an audience member. That's how it should look. The mechanics behind it, or his diagram, the drawing, that should have nothing to do with it.
You mentioned The Illusionist and The Prestige. As a professional magician, does Hollywood consult with you?
I've been in the acting field in New Orleans even before people here knew I was a magician. Even though I'd been doing magic a lot longer, I really loved entertainment and sort of moved to New Orleans so I'd be closer to auditions, because at the time, all auditions, we'd have to physically drive there, and was eventually hired by the casino here to be an entertainer. But it was acting that really did it for me. And so I was getting to know contacts within, Hollywood, South, the New Orleans film industry. And then along the way, of course, they all knew about what I do. And I started getting calls. I was I'd become the go-to guy of who to consult with. So there's a lot of movies that I've been involved with from a different perspective as just actor. And they've brought me on as both a consultant, behind the scenes, doing special effects, a lot of things like that, training the actor. There was one show that I was training the actor to do some lighter tricks, to do sleight of hand with a Zippo, and help him, so they could do close-ups on my hands or cut to him actually attempting the effect. And my ring magic, in fact, in the world of magicians, they kind of know me for doing a lot of sleight of hand with finger rings, which actually they're all behind me. I can go grab one. But another thing that I didn't put on my desk, but Sylvester Stallone was the reason that I learned that to begin with. They called me up, and a producer called and said, "Do you do magic tricks with like a finger ring?" And you always say yes, of course. Like if he had said, "Do you do magic tricks with an appearing peacock?" Of course, all the time. But then you figure it out. How much time do I have to figure it out? And you always assume you have more, but I had 4 days to figure it out. So I tried to master some new sleight of hand for me within 4 days. At this time, I had no idea Sylvester Stallone was involved because I didn't know much about it. It was the Expendables. I didn't know much about that or anything. And they just kept saying, "Sly, we need you to meet with the director. Sly's going to be in his how would I know who Sly? I don't call him Sly. I call him Sylvester Stallone. That's
right.
That's what I've always called him. I don't feel like we're on a first name basis or nickname basis. But so it wasn't until he comes out of his trailer, I'm standing there, and he goes, "Oh, hey, you're the magician. Come on in." And it was just weird, surreal environment that all of a sudden I'm sitting in a trailer across from Sylvester Stallone as he's trying to tell me what he wants me to do with a finger ring, and he takes off his gigantic, it was like a skull and crossbones, a big 2-pound ring, and hands it to me, and which is not at all what I'm used to working with. But he's like, "You could do oh, hey, it's gone." And I was like, "Yeah, I know. I can do that." And And I said, but listen, I'm used to using something a lot lighter, a perfectly round ring, like flat edges. I would need to practice with this one, and I actually had to change my method entirely to be able to do some of the effects with it. He said, we'll borrow this, but take it with you so you can practice, which he should have never done because, of course, I didn't know it was the only one. So, like 4 days later, I get a frantic call from one of the producers saying, "You have Sylvester Stallone's ring?" I said, "Yeah, yes." He let me, like, I didn't steal it. Oh, somehow I got it back to them in time. Long story short, they never filmed the scene. I got to watch a lot of this happen as I'm waiting to be used because they were just going to cut into my hands to do some close-up magic, and then it was supposed to be Jet Li's hands. So Jet Li was going to grab the ring from him, do some sleight of hand, give it back or something like that. That's one example. I was on the movie Focus, the Will Smith movie, and I was working with Apollo Robbins, who's a known pickpocket. I got a call once from NPH. I knew he was going to be calling because they needed some props for American Horror Story that he was on, and they needed a magician in town to see if I had any props. So I knew he was going to, they asked if it'd be okay for him to call me. Like, I'm going to say no. And what's so funny is, though, it's so flustering. You try not to act like shell shocked.
With the movies you've been on, you mentioned Expendables and Focus. Which movie franchise or which movie call or would you just make your day? What call are you waiting for?
You answered your own question. I think that I don't know if there's be anything like there's other things that I'm really into that I love, but I feel like being a part of Marvel, I've always wanted to be a superhero. I think that's kind of why I got into magic, because it's the closest thing to being able to have superpowers. And to be able to play a superhero role would be a dream come true.
You mentioned that your leading act, I guess you would call it, when you're doing your competition is the sleight of hand with the ring.
Yes.
So the competition, tell me about that. Do you have any competitions coming up, and what is that exactly?
So magic competition, it is a bit unusual. We actually have the world champions of magic, which just happened in Italy last week, basically. Shout out to my good friend Billy Shui, who took a trophy home from Canada with a mentalism routine. Unbelievable. And that's a trophy I covet. I came in 7th when I was there in 2015. And it's every 3 years in a different country. So it's kind of like the Olympics of magic. To prepare an act, most of them are 10 minutes long, and you're putting together a routine. But in this situation, it's usually not your typical stuff, because often these are impractical acts that you really can't even take on the road or do in a theater. And for example, how often am I hired to do 10 minutes on stage? I'm usually going to do either a headlining show or a feature set. So one 10-minute act is not usually enough to perform anywhere else, but you're putting together this specific artistic act because your audience is magicians, and you have to know your audience. And that's the one thing that I really took with me that worked for me, is the fact that I knew it wasn't the typical type of performance. So I'm putting in jokes, and I'm putting in routines and even effects that I know are specifically for the magicians. It's impressive not only to laymen, but magicians, because anytime I do it, magicians kind of freak out over it. So I was like, that's going in. In fact, I realized, okay, that's how I'm going to catch them off guard. Just did it again in Houston. Decided to come out of retirement and go after some more trophies. I took the silver medal in close-up magic. That was a national competition at the International Brotherhood of Magicians. I did a competition with the Society of American Magicians in Nashville, and I did extremely well. Unfortunately, I went overtime because I talked too much, and it was a comedy act, and I was doing a lot of improv, and I got disqualified. Go all that way, and it's like, what an amateur move. Can't you just shut up? But here's what I'm not going to do. I am not going to walk off stage and leave anybody hanging. If I'm in the middle of a card trick, I'm going to finish the trick. Like, if there's an audience, they're there to see magic. It's not about you winning money or winning a trophy. That moment is real, and I am not going to just leave the stage. So it was great, and everybody loved it. I got to meet Nate Bargatze, which is cool. Comedian Nate Bargatze was there because his father was the guest of honor. His father's a magician, and a good friend of mine, Steve Bargatze, he was the guest of honor at the Society of American. And then 2 weeks ago, I was in Houston for they were kind of back to back. Now, my stage act was crazy. I want to build this up, and this is something I would love to bring to the World Championships. I decided to do an entire act silent to music. I was completely painted gold, body painted gold, and I'll send you some pictures. Yeah. So I did a manipulation act as a human statue, like you would see in Jackson Square in New Orleans. like the type of human statue you might see posed in New Orleans.
Right.
So that was an act nobody had done. So it was unique. I think everyone was blown away of like what I put together and didn't even realize that I had only spent a couple weeks on this act and really only rehearsing for a couple days in the room and putting it all together because it had never been done. That was the debut of it. And I actually it was a bigger act because I had 3 cast members. I had 3 other magicians I recruited to be part of the act because I needed actors on the stage as well. Because essentially the statue can't move when I'm like in the middle of a park, but the statue has to be frozen anytime somebody is in eye line, somebody's there. So like real life, you can't see a statue move. So the comedy end of it is that people would walk. I'm in the middle of something and have to freeze because people are walking by, and like one guy's going by, he's jogging and takes an excruciating amount of time to get across the stage because he's like tying his shoe and everything. And the whole time I'm posing on one foot, because I'm frozen as the statue. And it's essentially a love story because he sees this girl but cannot interact with her, cannot get her attention because anytime she turns around, he's frozen.
Because someone's in the, yeah, I'd love to see that. A couple things stand out to me as you shared everything you just talked about. One is the importance of connecting with the audience, right? I think I mentioned this to you before that I DJ'd. And what's really important is you can't just go out and play music, right? You have to know the crowd. You have to know the audience, come up with a set that speaks to them, right? Engages with them. You might have a few surprises in there, here and there. But at the end of the day, you want to be able to finish the gig knowing that they felt what you were doing. They really connected with you. It sounds like being a magician, there's a lot of that as well. Something else that stands out is how passionate you are about it. Magic is your life, is what you do. Would you be willing to do a magic trick for us?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So I have a couple of things. One, I will reveal to you how I do it because it's something that I can't do in person, which you'll know in a minute. And then the second one, there's a reason that I bring it up, and it's because I thought about the fact that listeners, if you're listening to this as a podcast, you can't see the magic. So the first one, let's see. If you want to name any card,
Ace of Spades.
Oh, that's okay. Now that's a popular one, so you can stick with that one, or if you want to change your mind, that's fine.
All right, 5 of diamond.
You did want to change your mind. Perfect. All right, so what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to reach over here and try to pull from the side screen. See this imaginary card that I have?
Yes.
1, 2, 3. 5 of diamond.
No way.
Now check this out.
Real-time magic.
Real-time magic. Watch, it's going to vanish.
Okay.
And it's
wow.
back.
Okay.
All right.
Whoa.
So
Okay.
this is the one I'm going to reveal. In fact, I'm one of the only people that's done this so far, but it looks so good. I stumbled on it accidentally, but as you already know, I'm in front of a green screen.
Yeah.
And the back of this card is, as you
Green.
can see, when I hold it in front of me, it's completely, you see right through because it's a bicycle card, but it's a completely green back. So I realized, like, how easy is that? As long as I go to the side and I'm not in front of my body, then I can, and it helps because I'm looking at the camera. I just flip the card, boom, and it's gone, and then flip the card, and boom, it's back. And it looks like I'm doing amazing sleight of hand, but really I'm just utilizing green screen technology there. But it looks so good. I'm actually, I'm telling you guys because I can't. It's like cheating because I can't do it in person. But now that we're doing so many of these Zoom calls and whatnot, I will start doing that a lot and just let them believe that I'm that skilled, which I am. But still, this is a lot easier. Oh yeah, you should.
That.
and you need well, you can't see what it, but I got to show you exactly what.
It's a green card, right?
Yeah, it's
okay.
I'll have to send you a picture of yeah, you know what? I can do this. I'll just turn off the filter of the chroma key. There we go. Now.
Look at that.
Yeah.
So you see how
That's incredible. That's incredible.
And I didn't realize it because it still has a design and it's a metallic finish.
Right.
So I wasn't using these at first. I was playing around with these other ones that are somewhat, see how it has the white and the green, but those weren't completely invisible. And I didn't know that this was going to be completely invisible until I just picked it up and tried it. So that's why it works. That's what it looks like.
Okay.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I love it. Okay.
And now let's fix it back to, let's go 1, 2, 3 magic. No, 1, 2, 3 magic. Yeah. There
Boom. Okay.
Does that work?
I love it.
Okay.
I love it. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, okay. For me, it wasn't for a second. I was like, wait, what happened? I confuse myself a lot with this stuff. And it's crazy because some, magicians that are very skilled at mechanics and all, technology still for a lot of them so strange. And that whole green screen effect and some of the stuff I've been doing, you should see their reaction. It's like all of a sudden they turn into a layman because they're confused of like, what is going on? Like I had this green Gatorade. So I was like, look, I have this chroma juice. It's invisible. And I was performed from Mario the Maker, amazing magician. And he's like looking at the camera going like, what is going on? He just could not piece together like how this is happening because it looks like magic. It looks so real.
Tell me this. I'm passing to Smiley here in a second, but two quick questions for you. One is, with technology, right?
There's the ace of spades that you were looking for. Okay.
Awesome.
It was just hanging up there in the air.
Yeah, I put them all in different places.
So here's a question for you. With technology, right? Again, going back to DJing, there's so much technology that you can literally press buttons and things can happen. Whereas before, you actually had to manually do it. With technology, how are magicians, especially those that are more of the old school, if you will, receiving technology? And do they feel like it's cheating? Do they feel like no, leverage all the things you have at your disposal? What's the perception?
They do.
That's my first question.
There are different perspectives, and I was sitting in that's a great question because I was sitting in a lecture, and it was an older magician who basically said this. He held up his cell phone and he goes, if you're using your phone to do magic, that's not magic. Pick up a coin, pick up a deck of cards. And I'm sitting in the back of the room going, no, that's magic is the trick I did for Penn and Teller, which we'll get back into, but the trick I did for them, I'm using imaginary cards. Just like I did for you guys a second ago, it's invisible. There's nothing in my hands. Mentalism doesn't use props for the most part, and some props. So to say something like magic is what you do with it and how you create it. And if you've blown someone away with a cell phone, the effect is the same. That's what you're going for. It doesn't matter that it matters to him that it's not a coin. He can't adapt. He doesn't like the technology. That doesn't mean it works that way for anyone else. And the fact of the matter is, if you walk up to a table at a cocktail party and you're there to do magic and you ask to borrow an object, chances are everyone's going to have a phone on them. How many of them will actually have a coin in their pocket these days?
Yeah.
So it makes sense to adapt and be able to use that. It's all about how you do it. Now, I think what bothers them is the fact that people can easily just blame technology or credit technology and go like, that's how it works. It's an app. It's a cell phone trick. Well, that means that your presentation was lacking because you still want them to feel like, no, it's not something I can do. Because even if it's an app, I don't understand. So when you can use their own technology against them, it's very powerful. If they think they understand the phone, but you show them something, like my good friend Trig Watson, often he was on America's Got Talent. He's not the only one that does this, but he does it so well where he'll take the light off of somebody's cell phone. So you have the flash, you take the light off and put it back. You can't do that. You can't do that on your phone. But people start looking at their phones going, what the? I didn't know I could do that. Well, of course he didn't know because he just did magic. He did a magic for you. And so things like that.
Here's the other one real quick, and then I want to pass it to Smiley here. So the other question is, you've gotten a lot of awards, right? What's that one award that you're most proud of?
Well, wait, let's come back to it because then that segues into what I know you want to talk about.
Well, let's do it. Let's do it.
So we're gonna come right back to that, but I want to do the other trick for you.
Okay.
So and the reason is I was performing once and somebody came up to me at the end of my show and said, I loved what you did because you're so funny and that was such an enjoyable presentation, but he was blind. And he said, but of course I couldn't see any of it. And I was wondering, is there any magic that you can do for a blind person? And at that time, it caught me off guard because there's different facets of magic and I hadn't studied much about mentalism. And I realized that is a huge benefit for someone who can do mentalism because the trick is happening in your head. It's not necessarily something you have to see in front of you. And so I vowed to be prepared next time that would happen. And I realized that if you're watching this on YouTube, then you're fine. You can even see how crazy it was when the card disappeared. But if you're just listening to this as a podcast, it can be a boring 2 minutes if someone's trying to do a card trick, right? So we want to do something that can kind of work on a mental level. So let's see. I'm going to use your name. So Dre, using the first letter of your name, I would like you to think of a country that starts with that letter. Don't tell me. Just think of it. Okay? Don't say anything. So think of a country that starts with the letter, which would be the letter D for Dre. And then Kevin, the end of your name ends in an E. Lee is L-E-E. So I want you to think of an animal that starts with the letter E, and picture that animal, picture the color of that animal. Don't say anything yet, don't tell me, but the first one that comes to mind, hold on to those for a moment as I tell you that Chat GPT knows nothing about you, by the way, because I was going to do something with names, and I was like, well, I can use your stage names, your real names. I asked Chat GPT, what is Dre and Smiley's real names? I don't know how you did this, because I have no anonymity with ChatGPT, or no one does, but they don't know who you are. You don't exist as your characters. You exist, but they even said that they have maintained their anonymity and don't wish their names to be public information. I was like, wow.
Thank goodness for small favors.
I'm like, what are you, witness relocation program?
That's right.
Are you
The
really
program's
spies and
working.
agents? You're undercover? I mean,
That
I
wasn't even
thought they know
conscious.
everything. AI can't find you. So congratulations, you are anonymous. All right, so you have that in mind. Go ahead and Dre, tell us what country you were thinking of. Oh, that's an interesting one, actually. Most people don't even say that. What was the second country you thought of?
Denmark.
Ah, interesting. Okay. Should have had you go second, so we'd say, well, let me go with your second choice. But what's your animal, Kevin?
Elephant.
Elephant, and elephant is gray, right?
Gray.
So I gotta get another one of these if I can find a company out of Dubai. But this was a trade show I was at, and they had these pens they gave out, and it was interesting that the name of the company was Gray Elephant in Denmark.
Super cool.
Whoa. My mind is blown. Wait, how do you do that?
And on the back was your prediction of 5 of diamonds, but that was it for different, because you said 5 of diamonds earlier.
Okay.
So as you said, it's more of it. So if I said the same thing to someone who's blind, then everything's in your head and everything's audible. So that's an example of for magicians that would be something pretty basic, but it's a classic that we can use at any time.
One comment real quick to give to Smiley here is, you are so in tune, right? So it looks like to me your goal isn't just to create illusions, but to connect with people where they are. So if they happen to be, visually impaired, if they have some other, impairment or whatever, you want to be able to connect with them where they are, which is remarkable. It's not easy to do. It's easy to say, here's a ring, and all of a sudden, poof, it's gone. But how do you connect with that person that may not be able to connect with that trick? So
Right.
you build a different trick. So I love that. Smiley.
It bothered me that he couldn't enjoy it. That I felt so bad that for 45 minutes you're just listening to this and you wish you could see it. And I'm just like, I hadn't thought about it before. Of like, it's not fair. He should have his mind blown just like everyone else.
Yeah.
And so I do want to learn how to cater to anyone. Another example would be, I was sitting in this jazz club trying to talk to this girl from Japan who is visiting New Orleans.
Okay.
And she speaks no English, and I'm trying to have a conversation, asking her things, and then my buddy's sitting there, and he had a deck of cards on him. I don't even know why. My buddy's sitting there, my buddy Armando, and he just looks at me and goes, dude, and he just hands me the deck of cards. And I just whip out the cards, start doing all kind of stuff. She's amazing. Like, all of a sudden we're interacting, we're magic kind of, it works that way where the language, it surpasses language barriers in that sense. That I wasn't connecting by trying to speak to her, but immediately we're connecting, and now she's appreciating who I am because I was able to do that. So that's another example. It transcends language. But
It does.
I guess the one thing, what I love about the art and the effect that it has on people, why I've been so committed to this craft. My buddy Eric Leclerc put it best from Canada when I was interviewing him, and he probably got this from someone else because he's not that smart, but I'm hoping I'm going to send him this clip. But this makes so much sense. He said, magic is the one performance art that elicits pure response. You get a genuine reaction. Name anything else that can instantly turn a grown man into a 4-year-old. You respond to anything else, you clap, you hear soft music, you might cry. All of those things, you're in the moment and you're aware of it. Any of your responses you're familiar with and you know why you're doing it. But if you're in a restaurant at a table and you blow someone away with sleight of hand, they will instantly turn into children and start screaming in the middle of a restaurant, which nobody would ever do because they realize all eyes are on me. I'm distracting everyone.
Yeah.
They don't care because in that moment you're eliciting a pure response from that person, and now everyone else is aware something's happening, something's going on because they're getting. And that's why people love watching other people watch magic, is because they get to see them in that environment. They get to see their boss, who never reacts to anything, go, what? And blown away. And they don't get to see that in everyday life. But what other art form is going to elicit that kind of response? It doesn't happen. And that's what the craft is. And that's why I want everyone to be able to experience it on that level.
When you mentioned the experience with the visually impaired representative, a couple podcasts ago, we had someone on who's a professional sign languager. So he does sign language. And he says that he actually, he's in Utah, but some of the comedians that come in there, they'll contract him and he'll tell the joke in sign for the sign. So do you have the same sort of, I was wondering, we didn't ask him if he worked with magicians, or do you work with that recently for the hearing impaired? Oh, you did?
And God, I wish I'm still mad I didn't video this show, because I videoed all the other ones except this one, and they told me ahead of time I was going to have a sign language person there, and I interacted with them the whole time and made it. And I brought the deaf person. They were there for this one guy who was deaf, and I brought him on stage. I asked if he'd be comfortable with that, because I do a trick where one person leaves the room so they can't hear the card. And I realized, well, he can't hear the card anyway. And so from the get-go, I was like, it was so much fun, because it's like this extra this extra gag that became a running gag throughout, because you have this lady who's doing this stuff. And I said, obviously everyone can see it. And I was like, you may notice that tonight I'm working with an ASMR specialist. And so I get started from the joke, and then she's looking at me like, what, and so from that point, it just rolled, and it was hilarious. And I bring him up, and so he can't hear the card that's selected, but then the other person's supposed to pick the card, but then he was facing this way, and she's still signing what I said. And I was like, wait, did you just sign the card? She goes, yeah. I was like, well, now he knows. Let's pick another one, because and then so I was like, you turn around. So I had him turn around, not realizing I don't know why they needed to tag team it, but there were two signers. The other one was standing in the crowd and was signing to him, so he knew what was going on. I look over, I'm like, what? You're cheating. What is this? First of all, why do you travel around with two sign language people? And why are you telling him? And she goes, oh, I wanted to make sure I could tell him when to turn around. I was like, oh, okay, I appreciate that. I was going to use the tap method.
Right.
So, I mean, the audience is going nuts, like I'm not gonna be able to turn him around without you there, and so, and so it took, it was a fiasco, because I had to make sure I had to pick a new card to make sure he didn't know it, and then, finish the trick. And that's one of those situations where at that point, the audience doesn't care if you pull off the magic. It's no longer about the magic. It's about the moment, and it's about their entertainment and that value. And so they're not going to remember if I got the card right or if he named the card. They're going to assume that it worked and that it happened. It doesn't. Who cares? That is a moment that will never be repeated. Exactly the same. It will never happen that way again. And that's why I wish I had video, but you know what? It makes it special for the people that were there. And that was at the Chicago Magic Lounge, one of my favorite places to perform, one of my favorite places in the world that everyone needs to check out. It is so beautiful. And when you're there as a headliner, you do about 6 shows during the weekend. So I videoed the other 5. So I've got all this to reference and go back over and make clips, except for that one with that guy. And he was awesome. And those sign language people were amazing. I was so glad they were part of that show.
Nice.
So that was, that just happened. That was very recent. So great question there.
That is super cool, because until he said that, I've been to a few comedy places, but I haven't been to one where I saw the ASMR representatives there, but that's awesome that you work with them.
And then I was trying to talk really fast with my Cajun accent to see if she could keep up. And I was just like, okay, now we're going to talk like this, and I'm going to use a bunch of double negatives, because you ain't never going to know what I'm saying. And she's still doing it. I'm like, what's the, and I was like, I can't, what's the sign for ain't? That's a Cajun word. What's the sign? She goes like, or something like that. And I was like, that's right. That's yeah. It was so much fun.
Hilarious.
What did she say? This is what I do. I can make up size for any word you give me.
Yeah, I mean, you're assuming they're the expert. Who's going to prove her wrong? Like, wait, you did this.
Right.
You're supposed to do this. No, stop the show. Yeah. You just assume he's keeping up. But
That's funny.
to keep back on track, I definitely want to show off the question you asked, because last time you asked me about some of my awards, and I don't want to take anything away from those, because still in my heart, the particular awards that I've won, like the MVP at 4F, that's going to always hold a special place. That in certain ways, some awards are always going to be, to you personally, they might represent something different than to everyone else. But to the magic world, a lot of awards are going to be considered more prestigious as to what you've achieved and accomplished. But to the magic world and the Muggle world, because they're familiar with the show, going on Penn and Teller's Fool Us and winning that trophy is something that really kind of ups your prestige and your credibility. And I've noticed that difference of people, that there's mad respect when they know that you've got this one, which should be
Hold
on my
that up.
shelf,
Let me
but
see that.
I just haven't had
Wow.
time. I haven't had time to
Fool
organize all my
Us,
awards. I
Penn
just
and
have
Teller.
too many.
I fooled Penn and Teller.
This is the coveted FU trophy, big giant FU for Fool Us. I fooled Penn and Teller. And when you heard the term Fool Us, Trophy Us,
Yes.
that was Penn's way of telling me that I had won the trophy, which was a complete shock. And I didn't expect it. And I thought there would be some dialogue of them asking questions or trying to figure out. So it took me a moment to realize this is real. This is happening. He's telling me that I won, that I fooled them and got this trophy. And that's when I did my twirl.
Did you fool him with the Sly rain trick, or what was your?
Smiley, wait, let me say something real quick. Smiley, the way he fooled them. So for those that haven't seen the show before, basically the concept, correct me if I'm wrong here. The concept is, magicians come on the show and they show a trick, and then Penn and Teller have to determine, do we know what you did? Did you trick us, or did we figure it out? What's interesting about it is they try to still keep the trick a secret, right? As they share with the magician whether or not they were successful. So they'll use words, I'm guessing, and phrases that only other magicians will understand in terms of how they did the trick and how they were successful in fooling them or unsuccessful. The majority of people I've seen on there have been unsuccessful, right? And so usually it goes something like, here's my trick, here's the da-da-da, the magician's up there doing their thing, and at the end, Penn and Teller consult, and they, take notes, and the magician talks to the host a little bit, and they kind of come back, and then Penn and Teller say, we know she did this, and you did that, you did this, and then, you didn't fool us, essentially. He used, and now I want to talk to you about this, and I'm gonna give it back to you, Smiley. He used this trick that was so unique, I've never seen before. Not that I'm a magician, but it was so unique and creative. I can fully understand why Penn and Teller did not figure out how he did what he did. It was for those watching and listening. I'm going to link the episode to this podcast. I encourage you to go watch it. He creates magic literally out of thin air. There's Smiley. There's nothing in his. There's a point where there's nothing in his hands. And then he gets Penn and Teller to join in the trick, and there's nothing in their hands. And at the end, he pulls the trick off and shows. I don't want to, I don't know how he did it, but I want people to watch it. He pulls the trick off, Smiley, at the end, where he pulls it all in, and you would think that there was something tangible in everyone's hand that was involved in the trick. But there was a point where there was nothing. For those watching, listening, I know I sound crazy. I know I'm not crazy, but But you gotta watch it. You gotta see this
No,
trick. I'm sorry.
that's actually accurate. That's the most accurate description that I've had from anyone of understanding that is exactly what the premise was. And that was for 7 years. That was my premise that I wanted to stick to, because I've sent in other videos, that I sent in my ring stuff, I sent in my competition act, I sent in some stage routines, and none of that really interested the producers. But the one concept that I've been working on for years, and I call it forced imagination. The concept was starting from nothing, imaginary cards, that if could I fool them, or can I pull up a routine where I start with nothing and end with nothing, which is actually similar to what I did with the deaf guy on stage, because he actually is looking at nothing as well. And so he's hearing nothing and looking at nothing, and you have to pretend you have cards in your hands the whole time. And in the case of Penn and Teller, they had to pretend they were autographing the selected card. And I will say that, there's a lot of people on YouTube. You always have your haters on YouTube and the people that think they figured out and try to figure it out. And there are moments that, due to editing, are not there. So there are things that you're not necessarily seeing, in moments that Penn and Teller did see, that for people that think it's so obvious, that they don't realize that you haven't seen the moments, and why you don't know exactly what led up to why they would be confused and why they wouldn't get it. But you also aren't seeing the 10 plus minutes they're deliberating. It always looks like they deliberate quickly, but they cut it that way because they're not going to, they keep you on stage. But live, everyone's waiting, and in this case, Brooke is having to improv questions with me for that duration of time, just to keep the audience engaged so that they can have time to deliberate. So a lot of the methods and ideas that are discussed on YouTube obviously were discussed by them initially, but weeded out for certain reasons. So, some of these concepts that they're coming up with, you don't think Penn and Teller thought of that? You think you're smarter than them? Oh, you have everything figured out, when you didn't even see the full edit. You weren't there. And so it's so funny. And then there's some people that are so misled by certain things, and it's funny watching people confuse themselves, for sure. But I still figured, even though I had this whole concept in my mind and I had it planned out of how I thought I could pull it off, I still figured if I had to put math behind it, I had a 10% chance. I don't know how you'd really put a percentage behind it, but I figured I had maybe a 10% chance. And I was sort of counting on them, because they know so much about magic. I was sort of counting on them to either they would bypass this concept, or maybe they weren't familiar with it. And if everything played out correctly, they wouldn't come to that realization. And I'm guessing, I don't know really what the deliberation was. I don't know what they were saying, because normally I was waiting for the code. I was waiting for them to say something, give me some words to work with to let them know yes or no if that was my method, if they were onto something. But there was none of that. What he did was, I make up magic phrases the whole time, which I was kind of I was trying to make it sound like Harry Potter stuff. So I have to fix the deck of cards, so I say Deculus Reparo. And then at the end, which I love the one, I go, Apiro chosen cardo Ferriodo. And so that's the phrases I'm using. But then it was so funny, because he goes, you uttered a lot of Latin phrases, and I'm kind of laughing, because I'm like, well, it was really meant to sound like Harry Potter. It's not, it's not anything really. Right. But he's like, so I'm going to give you a phrase in Latin, and that's when he says, "Fool us, Trophius," and without anything in between, just was like, boom, there you go. That's how I'm letting you know you won the trophy. You fooled us. And so that's why it was took me a second to realize this moment, and then even wonder if it was real. Because then you go backstage and you have to wait, because in case, the whole thing's shot like a television show. It's not done like a normal performance act in front of the audience. There's only usually about 4 per segment of recorded, and in between they're setting up the cameras, the director's on stage, they're letting know Brooke what to do, and so it's all filmed like a television show. So you have to wait and make sure they got it all. They're scrubbing the video and let you know if they need to reshoot something, if there was something that they might tell you to come out and just hold up an object, or whatever, and they let you know if you do mess up, just find a spot you can go back to and edit yourself, because we'll just we can edit from there, as long as you don't spill cards all over the stage. Then you can probably go back to your last line. Unfortunately, I didn't have to do any of that. I just did it straight through. But I'm back there waiting to make sure they got it all on footage wise, but I'm also waiting to see if someone's going to rip this trophy out of my hands and go, "Ah, we fooled you. Sorry, no, that wasn't. No, give it back." Especially just because anytime you fool them, you're like, "What am I getting away with something?" And then by the time they got backstage, so then they walk up and they give you the trophy, and then they come backstage to talk to you. So anytime they want to talk to they want to talk to the foolers, they want to get to know you. And that's such a special treat, especially a lot of magicians have met them at some point. For me, I hadn't. And that's kind of the premise of my trick, was that I hadn't ever gotten their autograph, even though I wanted it. So first, Penn comes backstage, and well, I probably can't say, I don't think we can use the language that he used, but he was basically like, "That's bull," and because at that point, I don't know how exactly, but I think at that point he realized what had happened, and he's like, "That's bull." He goes, "But I love it," and then Teller, who doesn't speak ever in front of a crowd, so he comes backstage, and he couldn't believe it. He had me basically do it for him 3 more times, or at least a specific moment. And he was like, "Show me what you did." And then I did it, and he goes, "Do it again." And again, we're working with imaginary. There's nothing in my hand, so it's so crazy. I'm basically going, "Okay, pick a card," and he's picking a card out of, there's nothing there. And then he goes, "One more time," and then he goes, "Diabolical." And he said it backstage. It's not on camera, but now that's on my website. That's my quote. The man who says nothing said one word: diabolical. And yeah, that's one of my favorite moments, one of my greatest moments that happened backstage, and still was in disbelief that this has actually occurred, and then was still in disbelief for 9 months, because you film it and you're under NDA, you can't spoil it for everyone, and the episode hasn't aired yet, so nobody can know. A few people knew that I went out to Vegas, and people knew that I've been trying to get on this show for like 7 years, but I couldn't say anything. And so I had this amazing moment, this unbelievable thing happened to me in my life, and I related to, like, let's say you're an Olympic diver, and there's a whole crowd watching, and you make the perfect, you do your flip, whatever, hit the water, and you don't even see a splash. Everything was like 10, 10, 10, right? And you jump up out of the water, and everybody goes, "Shh." Like,
You're like, what?
I can't talk about that. I can't celebrate. I can't write. No, you can't, for 9 months. And so for everyone else, it just happened. For me, I was like, "Oh, this actually happened." I literally had a bag over this in case anybody came over. There was a bag covering this. And I'd get up in the morning and look under the bag just to make sure it was still there. So it's like, until I see it, until this airs, it didn't happen. Nobody knows it happened. I can't prove it happened. So like, I needed to see that and realize, okay, they can't take it back now because everybody saw it. It is out there. So yeah, good luck trying to take this from me,
That is such an amazing, energizing story. But the one question I have, so whenever you're among a select, unique group of magicians that did win the Foolish Trophiest Award, do you have to show Penn and Teller how the trick is, how the sausage is made, or or is that part of the condition? You have to show them whoever fills them.
You do have to show one person, which is Michael Close in this case. And generally the producers, in this case Lincoln and Andrew, they do a call with you. You send them the script. They have to discuss the method. One person at least how's anybody going to know if they're wrong? And he's the one Michael Close is in their ear normally, listening to everything they say. So to know whether they're right or wrong. And so that's why I figure they probably went through some wrong ideas first, before, and eliminated those, and then maybe came up with one conclusion that wasn't correct. I wish I knew what that was, but then he informs them. So normally when they're talking to the magician on stage and they're guessing things, they already know. And Penn's great about that. I love the fact that he's okay with not knowing. So many magicians are so alpha about everything. If they see another magician do a trick, it's like it's going to lessen them somehow if they admit to a layperson that they're not sure how it's done, or they can't do that trick. They can't. They have such an ego, they can't even let go of that. Whereas Penn will just actually pretend, even though he's already been informed, he'll pretend that he's guessing at something and that he's right about it, just to be told, "Nope, you're wrong," just to make good TV. And but he at that point he knows that he's about to admit that I don't know how the trick is done. So you don't necessarily have to tell them, you're not required, but one person will know. And I guess it's a matter of whether he wants to inform them or not. But there's probably some situations where they still walk away unsure and not knowing. But based on the way they came backstage, I'm assuming that he was in their ear, or that somebody had to inform them, because by that point they knew what had happened and how, and well, not exactly how, because that's why Teller wanted me to demonstrate, but that it was kind of a relief at that point because what this secret is sort of hanging over us, and just wonder, are they okay with this? Are they okay with the fact that this is my secret and they didn't know? So it, but when I talk about the producers knowing, and remember when you mentioned that you think in your mind you remember there being cards even though it's imaginary. When we were rehearsing, there's a point where I toss an imaginary card to Teller, and then he has to pretend to catch the imaginary card in the air. After I did the rehearsal, one of the producers says, "Okay, but are you worried about, what if Teller drops the card or something like that?" And then he had to, for a second, he's like, "Oh, wait a minute. Oh, there is no card." But that's exactly the position you want to be in. I want everyone to, in their mind, they saw cards the
They're
whole
so
time.
bought in. Yeah.
They remember it in a way, and this kind of has to do with memory. It's kind of about creating false memories because and that's kind of what you want to do all the time. Is I hope people do think that I actually threw a physical card to Teller, and that's how they recall it. I mean, they can watch it on video to see that's not what happened, but if you recall it that way, then you are completely absorbed by the story of what is happening, which is exactly the position you want to be in as a magician.
Tell me, because you inspired the person who never speaks, Teller, to speak, do we see a name change on your horizon called the Diabolical Magic Mike?
Oh, yeah, but the thing is, if I start calling myself Diabolical Magic Mike, the fourth movie with Channing Tatum's going to come out, and that'll be the title. It'll be Channing Tatum as Diabolical Magic Mike, and then it'll just tick me off all over again because I've been dealing with this guy forever. That's why I didn't even put my real name, Michael Dardant, because nobody's gonna remember that, but everybody can remember that I'm not that Magic Mike.
Right.
I should have put the hashtag in one word. If you throw a hashtag in front of it and only one word, you can find me anywhere. You don't even need AI. You put hashtag not that Magic Mike, you're gonna come across me.
Okay.
And then if you do a deep dive, you can get into the whole story about why I call myself that and how I looking for the comedy of it and the fact that he stole my name and did a movie that has no card tricks in it. Has nothing to do with that. In fact, they did a Magic Mike strip show at a club here in New Orleans that was advertised recently, and I cut the ad. I forgot to do this. I'm going to post the thing saying, please stop calling me for refunds. I had nothing to do with this. I am so sorry that you expected card tricks and all you saw was scantily clad men with great abs. I am sorry about that. I understand why you're disappointed, but I am not giving refunds. This was not my show. This was not false advertising. It had nothing to do with me. Yeah, because I still get calls. I get calls from people, and you can kind of always tell because the way
That's
they're
hilarious.
on they're like, do you do bachelorette parties? And I'm always like, yes, I do.
Of course.
If you're looking for a magician,
right, yeah,
but
right.
I'm not
fully
that
clothed.
Magic Mike. Yeah, and sometimes I hadn't thought about it before, but that's a great thing to have at a bachelorette party. I'll come out to the same music. But my opening line is sorry to disappoint you, but I think I would disappoint you.
Yeah. well,
That's funny.
one thing is, you mentioned, I have one question because you mentioned it earlier in the pre-show. You mentioned ChatGPT, and then recently you just said AI. Well, the question will come after this statement. You can't find anything on Dre and myself is because we're avatars. We're not real.
Guess so.
We're an illusion. That's why we
We're
have
AI.
no digital. We're AI. There's no digital footprint on us, so you'll never find us in chat,
I can believe you.
or any of that. So,
this day and age, I mean, you could that could be true, and the whole time I'm going nah, and then somehow you prove me wrong, and I mean that's the thing. It's like what is real anymore,
Right.
And people always think like, does that hurt the world of magic? Well, actually. No, because people are so confused by what's real that for me to do something that's not real, that I just kind of have to do it in a way that the reaction is that's not supposed to happen, that I don't know, I'm confused by this, and that not just accept it as, well, that's life now. That's, he can disappear right in front of you. He can turn himself into black and white or green screen chroma. That's just how life works. Like, because it's to the point we're getting.
Yeah.
So do you use ChatGPT or AI as part of your research or part of your performance? Or how do you see the convergence of artificial intelligence, creating videos on demand with prompts, and all this technology, which is, if we were to speak to my grandfather or anyone from like who's like
Yeah.
100 and greater, if they were alive, they would see AI as magic. They would
It is
see
magic.
ChatGPT as magic. So how does that
Completely.
converge with the real magicians in the physical world and now the digital world with AI coming together? Do you use it?
What is the direct quote? Arthur C. Clarke said that any new technology, something about not understandable, any new technology is easily construed as magic. That's not the exact quote, but something to that effect of magic is the same as any technology that you don't understand, and essentially that is. I mean, I cannot explain to you in scientific terms how a fax machine works. And the fact that I can't do that, I have always thought it's magic. I always thought that like that is the beginning of a Star Trek replicator, which I'm still mad that we use the term 3D printer when for
Yes.
years we had Star Trek that told us in the future it is called a replicator. Why the hell are you calling it a 3D,
3D printer.
Like call it what it is. That is the beginning of a replicator. We
It's
should
the
call VR the
lawyers.
holodeck. I mean, that's what
It's
it is.
it's the lawyers because the Gene Roddenberry probably prevented them from calling it a replicator because they're like imagine the guy pitching the 3D printer. What are you doing? It's a replicator. Oh yeah. Oh well, we can't call it that. Let's call it 3D printer. That's all it was. It's the lawyers. They prevent everything. It's always the lawyers.
It's always the lawyers. Here's a question for you, Magic Mike. So before we go into the final four, I did my research and I learned about Fitz and Hazel Cashew. Can you
Yes.
share with our audience the significance of those two names, who they are, what they are, and the role they play in your life?
They are more famous than me because in social media, they have had videos go viral already, and it's easier to get a following. There's way more people on the Fitz and Javi TikTok than on my TikTok as Magic Mike. So
Wow.
people care more about cats and squirrels than they do about magic. Or entertainment or comedy, and it's obvious by the response that I'm getting. I started a TikTok just for my cats. It's called the Fitz and Javi Show, where we do typical cat stuff, and later I'll have a stream like Happy Catter Day, and everybody loves the cuteness and when you feed them and all. But they are also learning tricks. I have now. It started with 2 cats, and that's why the show's named after Fitz and Javi, but now it has grown because Fitz needs so much stimulation. I tried to get him 1 new kitten, and that turned into 4 more. So currently in the house, I have 6 cats that are officially mine. I'm slowly becoming a crazy cat lady and will never have to leave the house. I have 6 cats and 2 fosters right now that I'm trying to find homes for. I just got involved with a shelter, Metairie Kittens, and I volunteer there. They're often overrun with these kittens that don't have homes, and so I started fostering, but that is very difficult when you're someone like me who gets attached because the last 2 of my cats are what we call foster fails, and that's when you think you're going to foster, but you end up adopting because you don't let them, either they don't leave or you don't let them leave, and they just become a permanent resident. They think they live there anyway. From the get-go, they always think that, oh, this is my new place, right? And I try to explain to them, no, this is temporary, and they're like, no, I like it here. And I'm like, no, listen, you're gonna have a different home. It's gonna be just as nice. They're like, no, but this is cool. And it's like, no, this is my spot. I'm gonna sleep here.
Right.
And so it's it's sometimes difficult communicating with them. But I do a lot of tricks with them. So like Ember Jewel is learning how to jump through a hoop, and they're all learning high fives to get treats. And Fitz is my little genius and actually is the one that's meowing at the door that hopefully people don't hear. But I'm doing the button training where people thought only dogs would press the buttons.
Right.
Not necessarily. Cats, some cats will do it. It depends on their personality. It
Okay.
really depends on their personality because Javi Bear, who's my first one, he's my firstborn, he will not press the button. He refuses to press any buttons, but he knows exactly what the buttons mean because he'll come running over when it's something he wants. So like if it's a button outside, so Fitz pressing outside, because he wants to go outside, which they only go supervised. Javi will run up because he wants to go outside with Fitz. And but I've tried so many ways, and Javi basically is looking at me like, he looks at me like, no, this doesn't mean outside. This means outside, and we've gone over this. When I scratch at the door, you respond. You learn my language. I don't have to learn your language.
Right. Javi's like,
So-
I don't play games.
Yeah,
Now,
yeah, exactly.
Who's Hazel?
So Hazel Cashew came along and is my only non-cat, although the cat seemed to think she's just a weird-looking cat. So about how long has it been now? 9 months. Hazel was a tiny little squirrel that was lost by Armstrong Park right outside the French Quarter of New Orleans. And I happened to be pulled over and I see this tiny squirrel hopping along and it's running toward humans who are all kind of freaking out because I guess they couldn't tell if it was a rat or something. And, you know, you'd probably expect a rat to run across your feet if you're anywhere near Bourbon Street. And so we're kind of like darting this little baby squirrel who looks lost and helpless and hungry. And then I'm in my car. I see her darting toward, well, I didn't know it was a girl at the time. So, but I see this squirrel darting toward traffic and I'm like, oh, I can't, I'm a cat dad now. I cannot watch this. I need to do something. So I try to like direct her back toward the sidewalk, but then she's doing it again. I'm like, I got to move her. I can't do this. I can't, how am I going to do it? I can't pick her up or can I pick her up? I have no idea how to trap a squirrel. And it was one of those weird things where you just, you let the universe take over, you go with the flow, because I cannot explain why I thought this would work, but I had a little shoulder bag. I walk to the sidewalk where she's sitting and I take off my shoulder bag. I open it up. I set it on the ground. And I said, get in my bag. She ran over, got in the bag.
The squirrel,
the baby squirrel ran over, got in my bag. And as I picked it up and I'm zipping it up, the realization hits me of like, what just happened?
Yeah.
Like, I cannot believe, first of all, I can't believe it worked. Secondly, why did I think that would work? And then thirdly, do I speak squirrel? I don't remember taking that class at Hogwarts. Maybe I did take that class. I am I have a shirt now that says Squirrel Whisperer. That is who I have become.
In a cage, or does he roam free?
So initially,
how do you do that?
Because she was so little, I had to do some research. I brought her in the backyard and put her in the tree in the backyard. I was like, you're welcome to stay here. But she would follow me around. Like, we had an instant bond, and she would crawl up me and follow me around. She didn't want me to leave. We realized through the research that she was young enough, she needed to be bottle fed still. So she had probably, either got kicked out of the tree or something a little too early. So I found a squirrel handler who's a licensed squirrel handler here in New Orleans, not far from me, actually. And for 4 weeks, she bottle fed the baby squirrel, and I would go over to visit. So I kept coming over, and she would get so excited when I would come to visit and then crawl all around me, and I would feed her little nuts and everything and bottle feed her, and she would run around. And I asked her, I said, like, they have to be released, and it varies from state to state. You're not supposed to have pet squirrels in your house. And so and they want to be released. If they're able to, they want to be outside. So I knew she was going to have to be released. And I say, is there a requirement as to where, or could she be released in my yard? Could she become like my little backyard pet? And she's like, yeah, of course. So when she was a little bit older, I took her home, but she still wasn't quite old enough to be released, but she could eat solid foods. So then she, and by the way, if anybody's looking for a diet, I call it my squirrel diet. People actually noticed that I was losing weight because I decided it was healthy. Everything she was eating are things I like, but are healthy foods. So like cucumbers, avocados, pecans, and all the kind of nuts. Great. This is a great diet to be on.
Squirrel diet.
A squirrel diet. And so, it's like a forager diet, nuts and berries. And I would feed her this stuff. She had a cage going, and then eventually, to get her used to climbing around, I built an indoor tree attached to the cage and I left the cage open so that she could just like run around the tree. And then at that point, she had a little friend. She had a little friend named Rocky. So we had these two squirrels running around, but they wouldn't go anywhere else. They wouldn't run all over the house, and mainly because there's a sea of cats on the floor. So if you want to leave your tree, you got to parkour. You got to parkour all over the place, And as she got older, she realized she can parkour over the cats, and now she'll do it on purpose because she likes playing with them. But that's actually the word that I use to get her to jump on my arm. I say parkour. So if we're outside, she's on her tree, I lift my arm up and I go parkour, and she jumps on me and sits on my shoulder, and I'll give her like a pecan or something, or a peanut. She's so adorable. We suspect that she's had babies now, but haven't met them or seen exactly where they are. She has several nests. She's taken over the neighborhood. Now even has a little friend who comes up to the window as well, but is a little too timid, like isn't tame, doesn't know us, but is there for the nuts, wants the snack. And Hazel comes in every day, gets a snack, gets some pets, and then runs back outside and does her thing. And so now I have this amazing. So people are like, "What are you, Snow White?" I'm like, "No, I'm Snow White's brother, Bro White."
I love it.
I'm Bro White, but you got to spell it the Cajun way. It's BREAUX. Yes.
All right, so I love that. I love that. Not only are you an incredible magician, but you have a way with cats and, more importantly, squirrels.
Dr. Doolittle.
Okay, so before we go into the final four here, actually, we are going to transition to the final four here. So you'll remember this from last time when you were on the show. We're going to ask you some questions. It's going to be a little different from before. Some of
Right.
them will be the same. Here's the first question: What would you do? What would you do differently as it relates to being on Fool Us with Penn and Teller? What would you do
Wow, what a
differently?
question. What would I do differently, like if I went
Differently.
again, or if like I went back and redid the first one?
If you were to be on there again,
Oh, okay, yeah.
what would you do differently?
Well, for one thing, it could be very different because now that I've won it once, I don't feel the need that I have to prove myself.
Okay.
If I went back again, like, and a lot of people go knowing they're not going to fool them, but they realize they're going to get a great 10 minutes of footage. They're going to get some great exposure. They want to be a part of it. For me, like I said in our last podcast, I wanted to play the game. Out of respect for them, I wanted to try. I didn't want to just do something pretty. But now that I've done it, I could do something pretty. But now that I've done it, once you've done it, you kind of think, well, could I do it again? And like, could I? And it was weird. It's like it took 7 years to figure out the first one, but it's like on the flight home, I had 3 more ideas of what I thought might even fool them. Of like things that I could do to go back. Some of the producers would like me to come back as one of my characters, Cousin Cage and Mike. I wouldn't have wanted to do that the first time because I want people to know me and know who I am and
Right.
get to know my personality. But now that I've done that, because that's why I didn't go on America's Got Talent. They wanted me first round to do my spoof on Magic Mike on the movie, which I've only done twice and was part of a burlesque show. And the way that I won the greasing of the poles competition in New Orleans, which is also a coveted trophy that I'm very proud of. I was the first male to ever win the greasing of the poles. I don't know if we have time to even explain that, but I know it's a weird thing for people to hear, but I did the spoof on Magic Mike. I refused to do it as my first round, which is why I told them no, and which they were shocked by. That show, America's Got Issues.
Yeah.
And so I told them no because I wanted to be me first, and then I'll do any character you want. Because I love playing characters. I love doing that. And so I could possibly go back and do a routine with frogs as Cousin Cage and Mike, where I'm like, okay, y'all, we're going to go look for some frogs right now. This is how you catch a frog. So I have that idea. And then I've never done an act with a Rubik's Cube, but I have an idea for something that I could do with a Rubik's Cube. A lot of different ideas effect-wise that I could potentially do. I even thought of a sequel to the first one with an entirely different method where I would reference what I did last time and why all these methods that people thought of are incorrect, and here's how I'll prove it. So I have that idea. So I'll probably have to end up sending in a few things and let them decide what they will want. It is good. One piece of advice for anybody looking to be on the show and assuming they're going to have more seasons. I was on season 11. I might got lucky. I hope they never stop. But we have to wait each time and see, are they coming out with another season? And I think they like keeping it a secret to, keep the surprise. But don't do a card trick is the best advice, which, I didn't take my own advice, but it's because that's what I had been working on for so long. But they see so many that for the most part, they're like going to look for things that are more unique and different and try to piece it together. Now, my episode was called House of Cards. So they took 4 completely different types of card tricks to put into this episode, which is, by the way, how they film. So the people I was on stage with are not the people that I'm on stage with during the episode. It's easy to not realize that. Brooke always wears the same outfit. Penn and Teller always wear the same outfit for the entire season so that they can mix and match, so they can edit it together as if that was all part of one show for the exact same audience.
Makes sense.
Which is very different and makes it very interesting for the viewer later realizing that as well. The fact that I met different people while I was there that I didn't even see their act, and I met and some of the people that we've seen I've never met, even though you'd think like, oh, he was backstage with that guy. No, not necessarily.
Didn't even see him.
Yeah, and so mine was House of Cards, but not doing a card trick gives you, I think, a better shot. But I think that they're right about coming back as a character would be kind of advantageous to me footage-wise, I guess.
Okay, so second time around, you would do that differently.
And I'd be a little more freedom and a little more relief knowing that I don't have to pull this off. And not that I had to the first time, but I can just do a good job. Everybody can enjoy it. And I've got one. I don't need 3 of them. My mentor, Sean Farquhar, I don't think he's happy if he doesn't have 3 of each trophy. Like, he's got to have 3 of each. I'm like,
okay.
He's probably one of the only magicians that has more trophies than me, and because he's just gone for so many. So he already has 2 of these. He already has 2 of these, and I'm pretty sure he's mad that he didn't have a third. So
Okay.
I can, but I'm like, this looks good by itself. I don't think it. Yeah, I'll clone it. I can clone it in my replicator.
There
And
you
just
go.
make
There
a
you go.
bunch. Yeah. And they did make sure that it was of the exact size that if you notice the shelf there, it will not fit. It has to be on the top, because this will not fit inside any of the squares there.
Okay.
So they made sure this is going to be the top, the biggest,
top
the
of
most
the-
important, because that's where it's got to go. It's
Yeah.
got to go at the very top there.
Well,
So
that's
they
smart.
made sure of
That's
that
smart.
also.
Yeah.
Well,
Love that.
keep it forward with the theme of magic. Since you didn't meet Penn and Teller before the show, before you won the award, if you were to have dinner with Penn and Teller, it's a 4-hour dinner, and you're all there because you're a winner now. So
Yeah.
what would the conversation be like? What would you want to talk to Penn and Teller about?
Wow.
If you're having dinner with them for 4 hours, what's the top 2 things you would just like the freestyle riff with those guys with?
My God. What a dream come true that would be. I'm imagining probably the only way that would happen is if we're happen to be stuck at an airport together, because I don't know at what point, like, what makes me special enough. They could have a 4-hour lunch with any magician they want. I would love to be a part of that. One picture I'm going to send you, speaking of that, is because I am fortunate enough to attend the 4F convention, which is a invite only, sleight of hand only convention with 40 countries represented. This is probably the only place in the world, other than perhaps the World Championships, where you could take a picture like this. But I have a picture with myself and 14 other foolers. We got together, we're like all the foolers in the house, and we have 15 foolers in one photograph together. Which is just, I mean, I'm looking around, like, you talk about imposter syndrome. I'm looking around going, like, you have this wave of like, am I supposed to be here? Should I be in this caliber of like, I'm actually part of this? It's still mind blowing to me. I'm going to send you that picture with the 15 foolers. I would want to know. I wouldn't start talking about effects or methods. I would probably want to discuss like writing strategy and structure, and how for so long they've been able to put together. They are the longest running duo in Vegas. And there's a reason for that. It's because they know how to put a show together. They know how to write a script. They know how to structure comedy and story and dialogue. And that's the kind of thing that I think having a conversation about that can be really eye-opening. And it's something that it takes a lifetime to learn. There's always new things I'm learning about. There's always ways that I can improve my current structure, my current story. And sitting down with 2 people like that are so theatrical, I know that would be extremely beneficial. And just hearing the war stories, hearing about their beginning, hearing about the fun things that have happened, the interesting things along the way. I mean, these guys must have, I'm sure they have forgotten more than they can tell you, more than they actually know, of stories that have occurred during their performance career that would just be in. You could probably do your entire podcast with only them as guests and no one else, and cover another 300 episodes, I'm sure.
Here's a question for you. For Smiley and I, the podcast, what keeps us going and wanting and looking forward to the next episode is the guest, right? Every guest is different. They're fresh. It's new. It's exciting. That keeps us, engaged. What keeps you going? What motivates you to stick with magic?
Oh, excellent. Well, kind of what I said earlier about that, it is the only art form that elicits pure response. The satisfaction that I get from not only entertaining someone, but leaving them in a world of mystery, but more importantly, a world of opportunity, because too much we think we know everything and we know what's possible in life. And you would think that all this technology would show us that what we don't know, but instead we can easily just pawn it off as, yeah, that's technology. Of course we have that. Yeah, someone's going to invent that, instead of realizing that we live in a world where so much is possible that we think impossible. And so the fact that anyone who watches magic, in the back of their mind, there's that moment of believing in the impossible, a moment that we lose as children, a moment that gets sort of just beaten down from life, that we are told to think on a realistic level and not fantasize and no longer dream. The fact that I've been able to keep that in my life because of what I do as a performer, and the fact that I can bring others to that level, is so amazing to me and something I would never want to give up. So even if like I would pursue acting if I could be if I could be in a Marvel movie, if I could be part of a sitcom or something. I've tried to do. I've always wanted to do. I just have to be an entertainer and just have a creative outlet in some fashion. I could totally be on a show or in a theater performance and not do magic at all as a profession, but I would always do it as a hobby, and I would always, any chance I get, want to impress people with sleight of hand. And for that, just for the mere fact of that might be the best moment they have all day when I did something really quick for them where they question the impossible and take that attitude with them as they continue their day. And what other art form really can you get that from? So that's, I think, something that's very, very motivational to me to keep going as a magician, because I do have those moments where I realize, like, what am I? What? Why? Like, I know it's weird. Like when you talk to somebody like, what do you do? I know it's going to be like amazing to them, and like strange.
How
like,
do I
you're
answer
a
this so they don't get turned off?
I'm meeting a magician. Okay, that's I never met a magician. Like, that's real. Like, someone actually, you do that as a living? Wow. So it sounds like so childish and playful, but it is really, and that's why I love it.
When we were
Absolutely.
growing up, I'm in my late 50s, but we would sue magic.
No,
Yes, I'm almost
that's magic.
59. That's magic.
Yeah,
I won't say Dre's
he
age.
uses magic moisturizer every morning. It keeps him looking young.
It's
That's
AI
what you
lotion.
guys come on. You should have your own skincare line, right?
There you go. There
Yeah,
you go.
the Smiley skincare.
But the funny thing is, when I just remember it, growing up during the 70s, we're watching magician shows on TV, and then even I went to a few in Vegas. We talked about Lance Burton on the last
Yeah.
podcast. With this, the last final four question is, how do you see magic changing with this newer generation where they're limited, their attention is 30 seconds because they're growing up on TikTok and Instagram, and
Yes.
how do you get them in the first 3 seconds and maintain them? Because at your competition, you mentioned you only had 10 minutes and you got disqualified. How do you truncate that down to 30 seconds with this next generation, this next wave of people that if you don't catch them in the first 3 seconds, they're skipping you? How does that work for magicians?
Well, and it's actually a good lesson for any entertainer, because even without this new generation with no attention span, when you're on stage, you should give yourself a limited amount of time before something happens that has captivated them. So if you're a comedian, you have even less time to get to your first joke than a magician. If you know I'm a magician and then I'm leading to something, you might give me a minute before I've done anything or done something funny, or to keep your attention because you're awaiting. A comedian has even less time because you're like, come on, funny boy, make me laugh. And you should look at 30 seconds is probably a pretty good rule, or even less. That same thing with the magic crowd in competitions. I wanted to, within 30 seconds, make sure that I've captivated them, make sure I have their attention. If I weeded out stuff, is I have some great jokes, some great opening lines, but I've realized along the way that for something like a competition act, I can't do it. I got to get to something that is going to grab them and make me stand out from the competition, and literally in that sense, but also to make sure that they are captivated, that I have their attention. So we live in a generation that, magic wise, too many people are doing things two-dimensionally, and you have this great bunch of YouTubers that can show you some good magic head on. They can do it right for the camera because that's what they're used to doing. They're used to doing magic on TV. They're used to doing magic two-dimensionally. And then all of a sudden, when their angles change, some great effect that they're famous for doesn't work, and they realize this can't work from this angle. I can't do this in a crowd. It's not going to work. Any magician who really, truly wants to perform magic in the way it's meant to be performed, to be experienced in person, and be able to have that moment, not see it flat, where you can rewind it, or see it where you're not physically there, because none of that is the same. It's completely different. And for anybody who hasn't seen magic live, they realize the difference. If they've only seen magicians on TV, which happens, believe it or not, more often than you think, where someone goes, "You're the first magician I've seen in person," and they're blown away because they never think it's going to be that way. They never think, like, you steal someone's watch, they on TV, it's one thing, they never believe that that could really happen to them, that they could be a part of that. And that moment, you can't create that moment through television. That moment can only be real in real life, and that's the only way that they can really experience it and understand that that could actually exist, that could actually happen. So the newer age of magicians needs to learn that you're not just performing for YouTube. Now, that is something new that we older guys have had to adapt to realize, okay, well, the younger guys are getting all the attention. Why? It's because they've learned to perform for the camera. And actually, camera skills, theater skills, I tell magicians all the time that if you're only learning from magic books, then you have a great assortment of knowledge, but you're limiting yourself. And the reason I've been successful in my performance is because I bring so much else to the table. And it's not just about the magic. It's about everything. It's about the improv and the comedy and the acting and the impressions and my personality and being Cajun and all the stuff that I have learned from and bring. I try to throw juggling in the mix somewhere along in my show, just because people are impressed by that and be like, oh wow, I didn't know you could do that. Like, I don't know why would you think I can do a card trick and I can't juggle? I mean, one's not any hard, it's like
they go hand in hand, don't they?
Like, whoa, you do. They go hand in hand, especially when you're juggling. So yeah, I think that I've as well tried to think about, okay, what's some things that I could do that will get me attention on social media that will work for the camera and work, in a two-dimensional setting that will still be impressive, and it won't be like, oh, I know I did that, or I can rewind it. So it makes you think on a different level. But in effect, all humans are still the same. So let's say I'm at a restaurant and I'm about to do some tricks for a table, and the teenager is like this, stuck on their phone, I'll go, hey, ADD, watch, and do something like my ring, something like really quick, something fast and impressive, and then I've got them because this is real. This is really happening. This isn't on a screen. Now, whatever was going on here in your phone, that's not important anymore. This has grabbed my attention, and now it's up to me as a good entertainer to keep your attention, but now I've got them, and now I have plenty of time. I don't have to do it in 30 seconds because I know I'm good, so they're not going back to their phone. Often I'll try to start a routine. It's the first time someone has seen me, first time they're going to see me do anything, and they'll say, oh, can I record this? And I say, you can in a moment, but first you have to experience it, because I don't want you watching me like this. I don't want you watching me like this. That's not how you need to watch magic. So, and I don't care who you think you're sharing it with, they're not going to experience it the same way. You experience it, what I'm doing, and then the next trick, you're welcome to record. And that's not about, not putting me on camera. Of course I want to be on camera. Put me all over. Make me viral. It's not about that. It's about the fact that you haven't had the experience yet at all, and you're not going to do it watching through your phone, and you're not even going to remember this. You're just trying to record these memories for other people. So 9 times out of 10, they become so involved they forget. And they don't actually ever film anything because they've forgotten by that point, because now they're watching magic in the way it was meant to be performed. Sometimes, and I forget, and sometimes I'll try to remind them, you wanted to record something for your friends. Let me do this for you, and I'll do something that I know will play well for the camera. But usually they're over it because, we see them all. You go to a party, like all these parties in New Orleans that are so amazing. We have so much entertainment and so much color going on, but people are watching it like this. They're walking around like this, and it's like it's become that our memory of it is this big. Like our memories of experience have become this big, and that's how we remember things, because that's how we were looking at it. Instead of like, open your mind and your eyes and look at the real world and like look around. You don't have to see it this big. You can actually, you're there. You're there to see it. Let somebody else capture it and send it to you. It's out there.
Magic Mike, there is so much. We are so appreciative that you came back to the show for a number of reasons. One, because you're just fantastic, you're energetic, you're enthusiastic, you're inspiring. And we're so proud that you talked about it in episode 167 about your upcoming competition competition in the Penn Teller. And then you come back and you won, and you shared that with us and our audience. And I noticed, I hope you forgive us, we've gone way over time, but
I love it.
We just love this conversation with you. We could talk to you for hours, and we just want to thank you.
We don't know the number yet, right? Like you don't know what number this would be.
This is number 210.
Oh, it will. Okay, good. So 167 and 210, because I want to take those moments and put them together of like you asking me about the Fool Us before it happened, when I'm getting excited about going and thinking like I wasn't even sure at that point I was going to be on. It was save the date. It wasn't a definite booking. And then cut to after, when I'm like, it's almost unbelievable. Like, yeah, I did it, boys. Look what I said I was going to do. Which I have a great video with Hazel, with the squirrel, where I'm explaining to her how I won the trophy, and she's looking at me like, whatever, dude. And I'm like, I told you I could do it. But I will tell you this. Here's what impressed my friends about episode 167. It was about episode 169, or I'm not even sure of the number, but like 2 guests after me, because they're like, oh, great, you are on a podcast. These guys look fun. 2 guests after me, I may have told you this in the email, you had Rainn Wilson.
Yeah.
And they're like, so then my friends are like, oh, you're on this wait, did you see who else was on the like all of a sudden like now a big deal because I was on a podcast that he was on, even though I wasn't on at the same time.
That's right.
You know, I'm like as if like I guess what does that make me one away from Kevin Bacon? Like what difference does it make? You know, like who I don't know the guy. But so my request was like, okay, I want to come back. I'll do something else impressive to talk about. We'll figure it out. Maybe I'll go to the World Championships, but like whatever it is, the third one I want to see, because has he come back twice, or is
Rainn?
No, Ray's been on once.
okay, so I want to be on with him, and so I want you to go, hey, it's been a while, we'd like to have you back. Do you like Magic?
Yeah. And who doesn't like Magic?
Right.
Well,
so
right,
like
yeah.
so you can be a meet and greet, you know,
There
like
you go.
a whole
There
new
you go.
series of like Dre Smiley make connection.
There you go.
So,
There
you
you
know,
go.
the cool thing, Dre, I think Magic Mike just created a new phrase. How many degrees of podcast separation from Rainn?
Yeah.
He's 2 degrees of podcast. 2
Yeah.
degrees.
Yeah,
The Rainn effect. Oh man.
But you know what's going to happen now, Smiley? What's going to happen, Magic Mike, is now people are going to say to Rainn, hey, you were on that podcast that the guy that was on Fooled Us, right? Fool Us was on, right? You were on the podcast with Magic Mike. So now they're going to be using you as a reference.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. That's
Well, once again, thank you so much. And we're going to, man, once again, we could talk to you forever, but thanks for coming back. And you're welcome to come back to the podcast anytime. We love you, Magic Mike. And whenever you're in Tampa, let us know. Or actually, Dre and I,
Or
we get ready.
Nashville.
Yeah, Nashville, we're going to come out there and check out a show. We're going to put it on our Dre Smiley podcast list.
I have several coming up that if you happen to be in that town that you could come and see me, and I'll send you the schedule to make sure you know. But if you happen to be, so I have upcoming is the Magic Castle in Hollywood, the Chicago Magic Lounge again for 2 weeks in November. There's a new place, House of Magic in Philadelphia. I'll be performing as well. So there's places that you can catch me in a public theater setting. And I would love to have you. And but I would love to also have you as my guest. We talked about it last time, but we didn't make it happen. So I'm putting you on the spot. So all your listeners hear you say that, yes, you want to let me interview you, because that would be amazing. Because one of mine, it's not just about magic. In fact, one of them I call Off the Cuff, because it's like a lot about improv and different things. And one thing that you guys can share is obviously how to run a successful podcast and do it right, where you guys not only guests like Rainn Wilson, you have so many episodes and really creative guests coming back, a very unique variety of people, and there's so much about the logistics behind it that I don't know as I start this idea of talk shows and everything that other people need to know. So I didn't pin you down last time, but we will.
Yeah.
I'm gonna
Awesome. Let's do it.
Let's do it. My guest as well. But yeah, meeting you in person would be absolutely phenomenal. I'd love to see you pop into the crowd and be like, oh no, I know this guy. He runs that skincare line.
Skincare. I like that. That might be my next venture, Dre. Smiley Skincare.
I'd buy it.
Well,
For sure. Yeah. Thanks for being on the pod,
cool.
man. We enjoyed it.
Thank you. Appreciate
Love that.
All
Love
right,
it.
all right.
Thanks.